So an important distinction to know when working with functions in JavaScript is whether you're calling a function or whether you're referencing it, which are two very different things. So to kind of show an example of this, let's go ahead and declare a function here. And this function is obviously the sound that a cat would make, because who doesn't love a cat sound? A good old cat meow. So let's go ahead and first just kind of go through the straightforward use of a function, which would be calling it. And other words for calling it are invoking it or executing it. So we're going to do that in the console just so we can see it. And what we'll do is we will console log sound with the parentheses on the end. And that is an important part of referencing, or not referencing, but calling it. So what we can see here is we get the returned value of this function sound meow. And that's what we expected because this is a calling of the function. Okay? But what about referencing it? Believe it or not, there is plenty of good use for referencing a function and not actually calling it at that moment. So let's say, for example, we have this function declaration, and maybe it's code that we got from GitHub, and we don't want to change anything about it, but we do want to rename it for the purposes of our use. So what we can do is we can do something like this. Const cat sound, and assign it to sound. And so what this does is this is simply a, it's assigning the function sound to this constant of cat sound. And now what we can do is we can come down and go ahead and console log cat sound. And remember, we have to use the parentheses on the end, which is how we would call it, and not just print to the console the reference of the function sound. So if we go ahead and do this in the console, we will see two meows now. And one more example of where this tends to be useful is, say you've got, say you're working with objects. So say we have, let's see, sorry, const is not capitalized. Const my cat is an object. Its name is, cat's name is Sam, and the cat's sound is a reference to sound. So what we'll do is just put sound like that. Sorry, no semicolon there. So what we've done here is we've created a object called my cat. And in this object we know the name of my cat, Sam, and the sound it makes is a reference to the sound function. It's not a function declaration. So the way we can access that now is to console log my cat and access the sound property. And that should print, oh, see, I would have just referenced it again. I had to catch myself there. So this will actually call that function now. So if we go to node, we will see three meows now. And so that really is the difference between calling and referencing. And it's important to know the difference because it's good to be able to use both. Obviously, you're going to need to call functions, but there are also times where it's really useful to be able to reference them without calling them and accessing the returned value. So at a high level, that's the simple difference between calling and referencing functions in JavaScript.